the worst possible thing that can happen to you in the college soccer recruiting process. When I was a junior, I was playing JV soccer as a junior in high school, which you can imagine did not lead to very much college interest. I did, however, go to a few college ID camps, and I did receive some college interest because I was a good soccer player. I am a good soccer player. And I got an offer from a Division One school, Cal Poly, and they made the offer at a surf cup showcase after having been to their ID camp. And my two younger brothers were sitting there next to me, and my mom and my dad, who knew nothing about soccer other than I loved it, and they were willing to drive me and take me everywhere. And we bought NCSA, we bought all the platforms, and they weren't helpful to us. But look, I got an offer to play Division One soccer. So I went on a visit, and I remember there was another recruit there, and they brought him in the locker room and not me. And I remember being, really, really sad about it. But I was like, look, I'm on the team, so the same. A month later, the coach calls me and says, Zev, we're not going to recruit you. We changed our mind. Okay, I was in my senior year at this point, which is a problem, as many of you would know, because that is really late in the recruiting process, and they told me yes. Now, luckily, because my parents were adults in my process, and I, was a young 16, 17-year-old person, they had encouraged me to keep the interest of other schools just in case. Not necessarily flirting with them because I'd already committed verbally to Cal Poly, but for them to go, look, during the recruiting process, don't be rude to anybody. Make sure you follow up and you respond, even if you don't want to go to them. So what we did is we reached back out to some of the schools that had initially shown interest in me, and they said, look, this has fell through. This is the reality. You had shown interest in me. And one of the schools was a school I was really interested in. I happened to find them also at the Cal Poly San Luis Obispo ID camp called Valparaiso. And Valparaiso was a unique situation because I'm from Malibu. They're from Valpo, Indiana, which at one point was the coldest place in the country because of the lake effect snow. So the coaches really said, "We're like, you don't want to move here. I'm sure you don't. You're from Malibu. You would never come out here." And I was like, "Look, I want to play college soccer at the highest level I can, and you're Division One." And then most of all, they happen to have a 40-man roster, which is really rare for Division One soccer because they had a first team and a reserve team. The reserve team kind of was like Division Three level, and the first team was Division One, and that you could improve and get better and move on to the next team. And that was very professional soccer to me, and I really liked that vibe. So I went on an official visit. I was invited by the players to go play pickup with them, with the guys who were playing on the reserve team. The college coach is not allowed to, watch, technically speaking, according to the rules. But, and he didn't. I'm sure he didn't because those are the rules. But because I was playing pickup with the players reported back to the coach and said, look, he's good. So that, wasn't a coincidence. He had his captains out there watching me who were going to report back to him. And that's no different than it happens at college ID camps as well. When they send their own players to work the camps, it is so that way they act as extra scouting eyeballs to see who's good. And then sometimes they'll even encourage their college soccer teams to jump into the training session, or sometimes you'll play an all-star game against the college soccer team to see how you do against their actual team. This is not a coincidence. This is normal, and while it's not maybe on paper, this happens all the time in the college recruiting process. The NCAA are monitoring, but not like crazy because the money in soccer, it doesn't exist really. So when I luckily had stayed in contact with this team, Valparaiso, their school was really expensive. So I told them straight up, I said, I can afford this much, but that's it. They did an academic read, and they're like, we know you can get an academic scholarship for almost half your money. We'll cover the other half athletically. And the coach told me, look, when we were in the airport driving to the field, you were mature, you asked us specific questions, you inquired about my family. I think one day you're going to be the captain of this team, and probably one day really soon, like your sophomore, junior year. And I obviously was like, wow, my gosh, this is amazing. And I loved every second of it. And I was a captain my sophomore year. And then I became the captain my junior year and, of course, my senior year. And the college, I got a full ride scholarship for my 4 years of school, which was worth $250,000, which made a huge difference for my family and I. The message here is if I hadn't kept in touch with the schools and been polite to everybody else along the way, very good chance that I wouldn't have even been able to play college soccer. And eventually I went and played pro soccer because of college soccer. So my message to you in this particular, what's the worst thing you could do, is be impolite or ignore the other coaches because you don't know what could happen. We had another player recently tear their ACL. That same player is going to stay in touch with not only the school that made them an offer, but the other schools as well, because in a year's time, things could be very different. And there's nothing you can do about that. So I want you to stay close and connected to the teams as you go out this recruiting process. Thank you very much for listening. If you have questions, you can DM me on Instagram, ZevFootball, or best yet is to apply for a call. Link is in the bio.